Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the...
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your...
windshield wipers. eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
70,000 people are here, and Bob Dylan is the reason for it.
Inspired by their true story.
For anyone who's gonna hold your attention on a stage, you have to kind of be a freak.
Are you a freak?
Hope so.
And starring Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. He defied everyone.
Turn it down!
Play loud!
To change everything.
Make some noise, BD.
Timothée Chalamet, Edward Norton, Elle Fanning, Monica Barbaro. A complete unknown. Only in theaters Christmas Day. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today.
Hey everyone, welcome to Spin Shuffle Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. I feel like on this show we've had a bit of a stretch where we have talked about round CDs that came from the Squared Circle, because previously we talked about the Ready to Rumble soundtrack, and then we also talked about the John Cena album. Well, we're going to triple down on this one because we are talking about the self-titled debut and only album from the Luchagors. And here to join me, well, we're talking wrestling, so you know, we had to bring Lyle Robichaud back on the show. Lyle, how you doing, man?
Doing great. I love being this show's resident wrestling expert, and I will gladly wear that title.
All right, so in preparation for the Luchagors I freaking love that name. I absolutely do. I was in Mexico recently. I almost bought myself a luchador mask, but yeah, the Luchagors, fantastic play on words. Did you know of this album before prepping for this episode?
I knew of the band. I knew that Lita, who is the wrestler that behind the band, I knew Lita had a music project. They only put out one album, and I just heard mixed things, but it's such a footnote that I never got around to seeking it out actively. Especially not when I was younger, because, you know, finding it would probably have been ridiculously hard. So this was my first listen to, and I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah. And for dear listeners and wrestling fans, if you go to our website at notthatbadcast.com, because this album is on Spotify, on the page for this episode, we have put the Spotify playlist of this album. So if you want, by all means, go have a good listen, because there's some decent rock on here.
There is, and I like the imagery. I like the branding they were going for. Luchagor is great. It's a great play on words. I, of course, have 3 luchador masks that I've amassed over my time, but it's really cool, and it is much like the John Cena album that we spoke on. It's not a licensed product. It doesn't feel like a cheap cash in. It feels like there was some soul put into this, which you like to see.
Oh, absolutely. So let's talk about the Luchagors. The band is Amy Dumas, yes, Lita on vocals, Shane Morton on guitar, Jay Hedberg on bass, and Troy King on drums, although he was later replaced by Racy Shea. The album was actually produced by Rachel Bolan, the bass player from Skid Row, and helped them kind of develop their sound, which actually shows in a few of the songs. And here's what we're going to do with this disc, this self-titled album. We're going to pick 3 songs each: a spin, a shuffle, and a skip. The spin is the one that stands above all. The shuffle is the one that, you know what, it's a good song too. And the skip is one that, you know what, just because we're calling it our skip doesn't mean it's a bad song. It's just one that maybe we like the least on the disc. That was released on September 11th, 2007. So I can't believe that this disc is already Do I have to do the math on this one here?
I was going to say, I don't want you to do the math because it's almost 20 years old at this point. 18 years old.
17 years old, this album.
Oh, I am so close to 30. It hurts.
You're feeling like you just got hit with a chair shot, don't you?
Yeah, it hurt. When I think of 2007, it feels like it was 8 minutes ago because I was just entering high school, but it wasn't. It was well over a decade ago, and I am well on my way to dust.
All right. Before we get into our picks, though, I ask, were you a Lita guy?
I liked Lita. I think Lita was very important for women's wrestling. Her and Trish Stratus kind of broke the mold of kind of what the women were doing in the company at the time. It was a lot more about, like just exhibitionism. Basically, it was a lot more about the sex appeal and less about the in-ring product. Lita broke her freaking neck for WWE. Like, she threw caution to the wind and did some crazy spots. She was out there with the Hardy Boys jumping off ladders, getting put through tables by the Dudleys and getting concertoed by Edge and Christian, just like the guys were. And there was not a lot of female talent taking bumps like that at the time. So yeah, I'm a big Lita guy. Very, very, very important. Would not be in the state that we're in. I think right now the women's division on several different wrestling companies eclipses the male. Look at NXT. NXT's women's division is way better than their men's division in my mind. And it all goes back to Trish and Lita when you follow the breadcrumbs a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think Trish definitely had more of the camera appeal, I guess. But I mean, she was a fantastic wrestler. But I preferred Lita's wrestler because I was always one for the high flyers. Like, even going back to the earlier days, we all know that the best match at WrestleMania 3 was, Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, because you had two high flyers going on there. And then, of course, you had like the early days of the Rockers with Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty flying off the top ropes. And then, of course, you got the Hardy Boys. And then you throw Lita into the mix. And then all of a sudden, it's like, holy crap. Like, this was some of the most dynamic wrestling that you could see on WWF/WWE at the time. And yeah, Lita, I think, maybe doesn't get as much flowers as she should, but holy crap, she definitely set the standard for what was to come.
1000%. And people forget Lita was around too. Lita was in ECW, actually, is where she made her debut. WWE picked her up from ECW. And you just as much as you would expect there, where, yes, it still was very much like a sex appeal, but the girls were jumping around, barbed wire, fire, all the crazy stuff that happened in that promotion. And Lita was right there with them. Like, she really was a trailblazer in her own way. And I do agree that it's only been in the last, 5-ish years that she's really gotten the flowers that she deserved for it. Because she always was kind of living in the Trish Stratus shadow a little bit. Because Trish won the 7 world championships. People forget the reason that Lita was gone so much is because she was hurt so much from doing all these crazy things for the fans' entertainment. Like, she did legitimately break her neck and screw up her whole spinal column on a spot on Monday Night Raw. Like, you can easily find it online. It's her and Trish for the title. And it's crazy. Like, that's a bump that not anybody was taking at that time.
Yeah, no. I mean, you think about the wrestlers afterwards, your Paiges and your Mickey James, and even Charlotte and Alexa Bliss. Like, we're talking talented, high-flying, good wrestling divas. And it all does stem back to the Trish and Lita days.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
Looking for a pickup truck to get just about anything done? Look no further. The Chevy Silverado EV isn't just the most powerful Silverado ever, with next-level towing capability and technology. It also offers game-changing versatility with the available multi-flex midgate and tailgate, which means Silverado EV helps you carry large, bulky, and oddly shaped items up to nearly 11 feet in length. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. Visit Chevrolet.com to learn more.
But now we get to talk about her musical side, because damn girl can sing as well. So Lyle, your spin pick off of the self-titled debut album from the Luchagors.
My spin pick is one that it was kind of a sleeper because it wasn't on the Spotify page. I actually had to dive into the album a bit to find it. It's Bastard. It's got some kick to it. It's got some bite to it. It very much, it's like a fight song, I'd like to say. Like you would see it as a UFC walkout song, it feels like. And you're right, Lita's got a voice, and she's always had an interesting voice. And her promos and stuff that kind of set her apart. She's kind of got a rasp to her voice, and it really, really fits well to the style of music she went with.
Yeah. I don't know if I would say it's a dynamic voice, but I mean, if you liked singers like Joan Jett,
yes,
and Courtney Love from Hole, like say what you will about Courtney Love as a person, but Hole had some damn good songs. Like anyone who listened to the Celebrity Skin album knows that there was some good songwriting on that. But yeah, Amy kind of really fits this rock genre. She wasn't going to come in and do a pop album. Like this was the CD almost felt like it matched her in-ring persona.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought. As soon as I saw the album cover, I was like, yeah, this tracks. Like this all feels like I would expect it to feel. But most of the things she does has that kind of vibe to it, which is good. Like, you know what I mean? Know your niche, know your audience kind of thing. But it's one thing to know your niche. And like I said, go for a cheap kind of cash in and, hey, it's Lita, buy my album. It's 7 songs we threw together over a weekend. No, there was some time put into this, and it's a good rock album.
Yeah. I mean, you've got good musicians on the disc. The fact that you got Rachel Bolan from Skid Row kind of behind the scenes and helping kind of develop the sound, like we're talking freaking Rachel Bolan here.
Yeah.
Whether you like Skid Row or not, you can't deny the impact that Skid Row had still today over generations.
Yes, absolutely. The music's still getting played all over the place. In fact, funny enough, Skid Row was on the soundtrack for this year's WWE video game. So like, there you go. There's still connections there all this time later. In most of the rest of the soundtrack was dominated by newer rap artists or Travis Scotts of the world. And if that's your thing, hey, if it floats your boat, sail it. It's just not mine. But to see Skid Row on there, it was one of the better songs on the album for the soundtrack.
And they are kind of looking for a singer right now. So, Lita, call them up. I mean, Skid Row already proved what they sound like with a female singer, because we had Lizzie Hale from Hellstorm leading the band for a couple of shows in Nevada, because, she was helping them kind of cover their contracted dates ever since Eric Cronwall had to leave the band due to his health. Who knows? Maybe there's a day where Lita sings for Skid Row.
Again, one of those ideas that people need to take from us, because I think it would work well. I can already hear some of the versions of it in my head.
I will say, if there's a song that I do want an Amy Dumas led Skid Row to play, it would be All There Is off of this CD. This is a good mid-tempo groove. It's got a heavy bass groove that I'm sure Rachel Bolan would completely approve on. But holy crap, the pre-chorus to this song. We've talked about this before. I'm a sucker for a pre-chorus. The pre-chorus is actually better than the chorus on this song. But also there's this spoken word part during the bridge that is literally perfect for Lita.
And that's what I mean. They do some things that are almost experimental, like things you don't see very often. They were really throwing a lot at this, and every song has its own identity on this album, which is hard to do in the best of times, let alone on your first shot at it.
Yeah. I mean, like, as you get to the bridge and you hear that spoken word part, it's like, is Lita cutting a promo right now? Because it kind of feels like she's cutting a promo, and I like it with this groove.
And you notice with a lot of wrestlers that do music, there is some of that kind of sprinkled in. There's always like different samples and stuff you don't hear, because they do, in a way, already do this for a living. They're already in front of 50,000 people, like using their words to kind of play a crowd like an organ a bit. But they're just doing it in a completely different way in this case.
Oh, absolutely. For my shuffle pick, I ended up going with another mid-tempo groove song. I went with Janice.
Wow, that's one I did not expect you to pick.
And this is one where it kind of has that whole vibe to it. I remember having to live through this cassette. Yes, I said cassette. But I mean, like that early 90s grudge kind of sound, like, bands like Hole, bands like Babes in Toyland, and even today, groups like the Butcher Babies kind of carry that kind of hard kind of hit. It's a good mid-tempo song, but holy crap, it's almost like there's some fictional rage going on in this.
Yeah, she does a very good job sounding angry in a lot of these songs.
So yeah, if this is the song that's coming on before she enters the ring, run. You're going to hurt.
Absolutely, you're getting a chair.
All right, your shuffle pick.
My shuffle pick is also a completely different from Bastard in every way. It's Already Gone. Okay. I liked it. It was something different than the rest of the stuff, and it's a little less hard, I'll say. It's a little less of an edge to it. But I think that maybe they could have leaned into that a little bit more. I think there was some stuff here, a slower ballad that wasn't as electrified would have been nice to hear, because I think she does have the voice for it.
Yeah. I mean, I will admit that Already Gone is actually my skip pick on this one.
Really?
And I think more because, and we've talked about this before when we were doing a few different soundtrack albums, in that Already Gone feels like the outlier on the disc. You have very Ramones feeling kind of songs, kind of Misfits, again, Joan Jett and Hole. You have a feel. You got a vibe going through this album. Already Gone, for lack of a better term, is the prettiest song on the album.
Yeah.
But it sticks out like a sore thumb for me, because when you're in that groove, when you're in that angry groove, I don't know if I want a pretty song.
See, I think I liked it because I think that they had another album in them where there was more of this. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, wow, I think this lends itself to what they could do.
It's a possibility. And then I wonder if a second disc would have leaned more into that, because you do see bands come out really hard on their first album and then they kind of dial it back a little bit.
Then they
slow
slow down.
Yeah.
It's not very often you see the reverse happen where they start off slow and then crank it up. It's usually like a slow downward turn. So yeah, it would have been interesting.
Yeah, I think one perfect example of that, where a band starts slow and then they pick it up, probably be the Counting Crows, because August and Everything After is I don't want to say a dialed back album, but it's definitely a bit more of a glass of bourbon than it is a beer. But then when you had Recovering the Satellites came out as their second disc, and you kick off with Angel of the Silences, you kick off with Catapult and then Angel of the Silences, that's a hard 1-2 punch to start that.
Yeah.
Especially coming off of an album with like Raining in Baltimore and Time Again, and like all the really good slower songs of August and Everything After.
Yeah, it's true. Like, so I guess it's one of those hindsight is 2020 things. I wish they would have released more. Like, that's what my biggest thing after I was done with this album was. I wish there was another one to kind of compare notes and be like, okay, what does the timeline look like? How did they move from here? Because I do think this could have been a Fozzy situation if they would have kept up with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that first Fozzy disc was something, but then it got good. It got really good. They
got better with age, up to the point where I think some of their latest work has been their best work. Judas was a huge song for them, and that only came out in the last few years. The one that Jericho both used for his theme song, and it got on iTunes charts all over the world. Like, it was charting on rock charts, top 40s. Like, I think that because they're such seasoned entertainers, it just takes them a bit to kind of steep the tea bag a little bit and like feel the waters out to kind of this new medium. And then once they figure it out, I think can be very lucrative for wrestlers to transfer into the music space.
But even if Amy Dumas were not to do a Luchagors album, but to team up with another band and put something out there, that would be fantastic, I think.
Pretty Reckless. That was all I was thinking the entire time I was listening to this, was she could do stuff with the Pretty Reckless.
I could say, or Dorothy. Dorothy would be another good one.
Yeah, that would also be a really good one.
Also, that would be a fantastic tour. Pretty Reckless and Dorothy. Make it happen.
Yes, Pretty Reckless, period. I want to see them live so badly.
Oh, they are a fantastic show, let me tell you.
You got to see them.
Yeah, oh yeah. Remember we talked about that when I was telling you about Rock on the Range.
Yeah, because you got to see so many crazy good bands.
Oh yes, they were fantastic. All right, so I've already dropped my skip pick with Already Gone. What's your skip pick off of this?
My skip is one of the cardinal sins in music to me. It's March of the Luchagors, both because I'm not a big fan of the song and because I absolutely despise when bands put the name of their band into a song and try to make it sound like this rallying call for them. I don't understand it. It takes me out of it. It's like this. It sounds like the most generic type of thing because you're just, we are bad, blah, blah, blah. It sounds like the Hex Girls from Scooby-Doo singing about being Hex Girls. You know what I mean? Like that's what it lends itself to me. So as soon as I even saw the title, I was like, I'm not going to like this just because it's going to bother me.
The minute you say the Hex Girls, but the first thought in my mind is going back to old Gem and the Hologram cartoons. We are the misfits. We are the misfits.
Yeah, it feels very much like that. It's like you could have used this to put maybe another song like Already Gone, but instead you put this thing where you're just like, we're the baddest people around. Like, come see our show. Ha ha ha. Like it's the only one where I'm like, okay, this is very generic. That's what it feels like.
I mean, Iron Maiden would have a word with you about,
Yeah. I'm not a huge Maiden guy either, so.
Oh no! You did. You said it, didn't you?
Fear the Dark's really good. Fear the Dark's really good.
Oh, so I guess we're not bringing you on for an Iron Maiden. There can only be one.
I will do it, but I don't know. It's just I don't want to say hokey. That's not the right word. But it's just stuff like this where they almost like hype themselves up. This is when I'm reminded the most of This Is a Wrestler doing this. Like it feels like something that was cooked up in a studio for WWE that somebody would use as an entrance theme, but not in the good way.
I could see people saying that with a song like Undead by Hollywood Undead, but that also feels like a wrestling entrance theme unto itself anyways.
A lot of Hollywood Undead sounds like wrestling entrance music.
Which there's another band you want to see live because they are fantastic live.
A couple of friends of mine are huge fans and have told me the same thing, that they are quite the sight.
All right, so remind our listeners what your spin, shuffle, and skip picks are from the self-titled debut album from the Luchagors.
My spin is Bastard. My shuffle is Already Gone, even though it's a little bit out there. And my skip is March of the Luchagors.
All right, my spin is All There Is. My shuffle is Janice. And my skip is Already Gone. Lyle, thank you so much for this. Now, please remind our listeners where they can find you out there on the interwebs and what you're up to.
You can find me at 640 Toronto on the Radio Player Canada app, the iHeartRadio app, or 640 Toronto on the AM dial if you're in the city, talking all kinds of things, news all over Canada. I don't get to talk wrestling as much as here, and that's upsetting. But yeah, give us a listen.
What I feel like we're about to start our own little, wrestling music podcast somewhere down the road.
I need to get my own wrestling podcast going, Jace. I really do. That is a goal that must be attained.
Well, when it does, come back on the show. We'll hype it up. We'll let everyone know.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. And to you, our listeners, you guys know the drill. If there's an album that you want us to cover on Spin, Shuffle, Skip, or an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the page so when we post new episodes and we post new blog posts, you know exactly when those drop. Until next time, he's Lyle. I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is Spin Shuffle Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.